blessing to introduce our guest speaker tonight. He has 31 years as an Episcopal priest, now in his 7th year as a Catholic priest, his 40th year of being a priest. He was the Vicar General of the Ordinary of the Chair of St. Peter, now the Vicar Chaplain for all the clergy of the Ordinate in North America, one of 3 in the world. Truly a bold witness to Jesus Christ in transforming the world. Please welcome a favorite visitor, priest, Fr Charles Hough.
Let's see, can you all hear me? I've got the microphone on. You can hear me back there in the back? Good evening. It's good to be here with you all this evening. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious Father, we give thanksgiving this night. We ask your blessing upon us. We ask your presence with us. Open our minds and our hearts to the knowledge of your love and mercy, which you bring into our lives each and every day. We give thanksgiving especially for the gift of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And we pray this in his name. Amen. Amen. Of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I'm probably going to break the rules because my phone's on, but I want to read from a piece of Scripture to get things started tonight from the 17th chapter of John's Gospel. And if you know your Bible, you'll know that when you get to the 17th chapter, you're right in the heart of what's called the high priestly prayer of Jesus. This was what he prayed to the Father before he was apprehended. And then finally, we know what happened. He walked into his passion, and then his execution, and finally, the resurrection. So we find in that incredible prayer, it's very lengthy, but we find in that prayer at chapter 21, he's just prayed for the apostles themselves. And then he says this, my prayer is not for them alone, them being the apostles, Peter and all the rest. I pray also for those who believe in me through their message. It will be us, okay? That all of them may be one. That's an incredible prayer right there. That all of them may be one. Now, everything that I say tonight to you all, I'm telling you my story and the story of the ministry that I present to you and the heritage of English Catholicism, of which is my heritage, is based on that one particular verse. When Jesus said, may they all be one. May we, the Christian family, all be one. Obviously, that prayer has a long way now to be answered and to be fulfilled. Because Christendom is split in so many different ways. Hundreds and hundreds of different denominations. And I come from a different denomination than from the Catholic Church. So you can say, and I readily affirm and say to you that I am a convert to the Catholic Church. This is my story. Now, I say this because, and I want to couch this, not only in Jesus' prayer, may they all be one, but also that I want you to take my words because I say them in all humility. I really do. This is not really about me, but it's about my, if you will, this person who has been a part and is a part of a movement in history that is very significant in the Catholic Church. So I present this to you in all humility, please. Now, the other thing is that you're going to find readily that I'm one of those rare priests, if you you will, within the Catholic Church, especially since St. John Paul II started allowing functioning Episcopal priests to be retrained and convert and finally be formed and ordained as priests in the Catholic Church, which began in the early 1980s. This is called the pastoral provision. There are quite a few priests throughout the world who are married. And I'm one of them. Okay? I'm one of them. And my wife is right here. Stand up, Marilyn. That's my wife, Marilyn. We have been married almost 47 years. We're approaching our 50th wedding anniversary. And I will say to you readily that the mission and message of the ministry that I come to you as a Catholic priest is not one of married clergy. The press always comes to me about, well, what do you think about married clergy? Because you are one. We don't push that. That's up to the Holy Father. Okay? But the reason why, since John Paul II, and also if you look at Eastern Rite Catholic churches like the Byzantine, all of those, many of them have married Catholic priests. Okay? Celibacy is not mandated, all right, for those of us who come from different denominations, because what the Holy Father has wanted is to bring about, may they all be one. So in order to allow for the church to work toward union and reunion, which is our mission, then he allows for an extraordinary sort of position, if you will, so that every Catholic priest, such as myself, that is married was given permission to be ordained by the Holy Father himself. Okay? In other words, and I was given permission by Benedict. All right? 7 years ago. All right? So this is an important, specific kind of understanding that these priests left their positions, converted to the Catholic Church, and mine was a long conversion, which I'll share with you. They came into the Catholic Church, were formed. I've been to seminary twice, you might say. Once I went to seminary in the early and mid-1970s in a place called right outside of Milwaukee. It's cold there right now. I'm a Texan, and I went up there. I finished at the University of Texas and went to seminary and got my first. And Marilyn and I were married, and we got our first sort of taste of old man winter, and it was something else. I'm glad I'm here in Houston. Okay. Anyway, the situation is such that the second time I went through seminary was when the Holy Father Benedict gave us a constitution, an apostolic constitution called Anglicanorum Cedibus. Greek for, Latin, Greek for what? Groups of Anglicans or Episcopalians. In other words, he was making room not only for individual priests of the Episcopal Church to convert and come into the Catholic Church and become Catholic priests. If they were married, they would have to be what's called restricted, so the Pope would have to set aside the celibacy rule just extraordinarily just for that man. In other words, it's a case-by-case basis. And the vow we take is that if Marilyn goes before me, then I'm celibate. That's how it works. And all of the young priests that are being raised in, I'm going to introduce another word to you, the ordinariate, which is what I'm attached to, they're all celibate. So this is an extraordinary time in which the Pope is reaching out to bring in these priests in order to bring about a reunion of the church, because I brought with me into the Catholic Church a whole bunch of former Episcopalians now, because they're all Catholics, okay, in Fort Worth. That's where I come from. All right. So let's understand that. So I'm a priest that's incarnated. You know, there's another big word. You know, Catholics like big words, don't they? You know, all that theology stuff, you know. But I'm a priest that's incarnated in the ordinariate. The ordinariate is a diocese that the Pope has erected. It's a special kind of diocese. There's a special kind of diocese for military chaplains. You probably don't know this. Catholic chaplains in the military, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, etc., 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 are in the military ordinariate, which is a diocese. Okay? In the ordinariate in North America, there's one in England, or Great Britain, and there's one in Australia. These three ordinariates are newly formed dioceses since 2009 that Benedict erected to help former Anglicans be Episcopalian. In this country, they're called Episcopalian. You probably know why. Hopefully you do. Because we fought a war with the British about 250 years ago, and the word Anglican means English. So if you were in the Anglican Church in 1776, okay, you would not want to put on your sign in front of your church the such and such Anglican Church. So they changed the name officially to Episcopal, which means bishops. It's Greek for bishops, okay? But the Episcopal Church is part of the Church of England, the Anglican communion in the world. There's 18 autonomous provinces in the world, and the Episcopal Church is one of them, all right? So we in the Episcopal Church, I should say, I was an Episcopal priest for 31 years, and I went through a conversion process, which I'm going to speak about, that brought me into the Catholic Church, first and foremost now, to the fullness of the faith. All right. The ordinariate in Great Britain, in England, Great Britain, Ireland, Wales, Scotland. The ordinariate here in North America is called the Chair of St. Peter. The ordinariate in Australia is the chair, is the Our Lady of the Southern Cross. All right. The ordinariate in North America takes in all of the United States and Canada. So it's a Catholic diocese that covers the entire country. But it is layered. That is to say, we have about 100 priests in the ordinariate. All former Episcopal priests, okay, who are now Catholic priests. They're Catholic priests. A lot of people come and say, when are you going to become a real Catholic? I'm a real Catholic. I'm a real Catholic priest. Yeah. It's extraordinary, but nevertheless, and you know the purpose here, okay? So the ordinariate is a diocese that we are incarnated in, but we also are under the authority of the local diocese, in my case, the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. So Cardinal Bernardo gives me what are called faculties to function as a Catholic priest in this archdiocese. Thus, I can function as a priest here at St. Bartholomew's and every other congregation in the archdiocese. This is true of military chaplains. They go through the same thing. They have they're incarnated to their bishop, wherever it is, their home bishop, but they also have authority under the bishop of the armed forces. Our bishop is the bishop of the ordinariate in North America, is Bishop Stephen Lopes. Some of you have seen him. Because the cathedral of the ordinariate is here in Houston. It's Our Lady of Walsingham, which is in Spring Branch. All right? Which is part of the archdiocese, has been part of the archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. Packed with former Anglicans and Episcopalians and Methodists, Protestants that have come into the fullness of the faith. Okay? The cathedral is there. Stephen Lopes, our new bishop, is lifelong Catholic. Worked in the Vatican. He's 42 years old. He's one of the youngest bishops in the church. He worked 11 years in the CDF, Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith. He's one of the curious in the Vatican. He was the architect with Benedict. He worked with Benedict on how we reach out to Anglicans that want to come into the Catholic Church, and Methodists and others. And that's our mission, if you will. So he's here in Houston. Cathedrals in Houston, all right? Now I have another tidbit to give you, all right? That is to say that being a married priest of 47 years, we have 2 children. They're grown, of course. Our oldest is a 2nd grade teacher at Bushin Catholic School here in Houston. Okay? Our youngest is the pastor of Our Lady of Boston. That's our son. Thus you see Charles Hough III. My son is Charles Hough IV, obviously. All right? And he was an Episcopal priest. He followed me into the priesthood. He was an Episcopal priest for 5 years, converted with me, many others. We were ordained in 2012 as Catholic priests in Fort Worth. Bishop Kevin Van was the ordaining bishop, ordered by the Holy Father. Bishop Van, you'll know, is now the Bishop of Orange, California. He was the Bishop of Fort Worth. My son Chuck and I were ordained together with 4 others, 6 in all, at that particular ordination in Fort Worth on the 30th of June, 2012. After a lengthy, difficult, if I can say that, after all these years being out of school, going through seminary again, and being tested and psychiatrically and academically and every other way, we were ordained together in the same Mass. The first time it's happened, a father and son being ordained as a Catholic priest in the Catholic Church at the same Mass since 1183. It's been almost 1,000 years. You are also, and again, I say, please understand, this is all in humility. If you know, I hope, you know, I don't come across the wrong way. I'm trying to give as much information because this is a magnificent movement in Holy Mother Church that's been coming for a long time. And we're so thankful to be part of it. We're sitting here with a woman named Marilyn, who's my wife, who is not only the mother of a Catholic priest, but she's the wife of a Catholic priest. How many of those are walking around? And that's exactly what the AP and the other media in 2012 when we were ordained are all that are swarming us. That's exactly what they went after. It was great, you know, to watch that. An amazing movement, which really began, dear friends, way back. Really began in the 16th century. Okay, it really began in the 16th century. Now, let me say something to you about this. You have to understand that I grew up in the church, but I grew up in the Episcopal Church in Fort Worth, Texas. All right? I grew up in a parish that is part of what's called the Anglo-Catholic movement within the Episcopal Church, within the Church of England. Does anybody know who John Henry Newman is? Okay. He's our spiritual great-great-great-grandfather. All right? He came into the Catholic Church in the mid-19th century. He was an Episcopal priest. Okay? And, of course, he's one of our mentors. I didn't know him, of course. But those that he worked, we were part of that movement. It's called the Oxford Movement. All right? And I grew up in an Oxford movement, Protestant, but Episcopal parish that leaned very heavily toward Catholicism. In other words, it's a movement that never wanted to separate from Holy Mother Church, which happened under Henry VIII, King of England. All right? 1536. When he sought after the end of his marriage with Catherine of Aragon, right, which was the rightful marriage, and he wanted his second marriage with Ms. Boleyn, and he got it. But he took Holy Mother Church asunder in England doing it. And many people since then have lost their lives. Thomas More, who served under him, was martyred because he refused to give his imprimatur to Henry taking the church out of Holy Mother Church, separating itself from the See of Peter. That was a horrendous tragedy in the history of May They All Be One. It was a huge tragedy. We have been separated now almost 5 100 years. And I'm part of a movement within Holy Mother Church to bring about the healing of that breach. So when you see and you get around any priests who are part of the pastoral provision or the ordinariate, you're dealing with priests who are part of the healing and sealing up and healing of that schism which occurred so long ago. And so many people, this is where we need to recognize something, and this is where I have to bring out my own family history, because being with my name Hough, H-O-U-G-H, which means really bearer of a hill, I come from a long line of Protestants in England who own property, okay? And I'm telling you right now that, and I've been to the northern part of England, around York, which is where my family originated, and I can tell you they were part of the persecution of Catholics. They were. I can tell you a little bit about that. Fact is that my family, my relatives way back in the past are all, well, justice has happened. Their sons and grandsons are Catholics again. And I hope they got that memo, and I hope they succumb to it, because I want them to be in heaven. I hope they are. But the persecution was intense in the English church. It was intense in the in the Irish church, even after that. But between the years 1534 and 1729, more really 1680, but it lasted all the way till about 1729, we saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people who were executed for their faith because they were loyal to the church. And they would not dare to let go of their faith and sign, for example, in Elizabeth's day, Elizabeth I, not President Elizabeth. In her day, it was called the Act of Supremacy. It was called that during the Henry VIII. Remember, Elizabeth was Henry's daughter. Got it? So as we see about 175 years of intense persecution in which so many people lost their lives because they would not sign on with what Henry and his successors did by taking the church out of its relationship with the See of Peter, which was a horrendous mistake. And by doing that, it became a crime to be a Catholic in England, in Ireland, in Scotland, in Wales, in Great Britain. It was a crime, punishable by death. Now think about that. These people were accused of treason because they were being loyal to a foreign power. That's the way it was. That's the legalese in it. Now Thomas More, the great Chancellor of England under Henry, a man of enormous ethics and integrity, wouldn't do it. But he also wouldn't criticize. He went to his death as a great saint. He really did. John Fisher, Bishop of London, the same thing. I can go on and on and on about all of the people that lost their lives as English, Welsh, Irish, Scottish martyrs to the faith. There's a story, and many of them were converts, such as myself, to the Catholic Church from the Church of England. Many of them were. Margaret Clitheroe. Anyone heard of Margaret Clitheroe? St. Margaret Clitheroe? All right, York. That's where my family's originally from, that area. Margaret Clitheroe was a convert, but she had such a love for Holy Mother Church that she hid the priests, Catholic priests, who were functioning, who were ministering to people underground in her own home. She actually had two. If you've ever been there, you'll know that the one there, you can see what's called the priest hole. It's where they hid priests in their homes. Because if they got caught, there was such a thing as priest hunters. These were people that bounty hunters. They were specialized in capturing priests and other practicing Catholics loved to get them when they were at Mass. And they would chain them up and carry them out. Some got trials, some didn't, most were executed. Margaret, because she wouldn't plead, got a special kind of execution. For people that wouldn't plead, they didn't get the wonderful, if you will, being hung until you're not quite dead. You're brought down, I'm sorry, young people, and you're drawn and quartered. That is to say, you're done away with surgically, okay? And your body parts are spread all over the country. It's tough times, folks, all right? No, she was taken out to a bridge to the toll booth, laid on the ground with a rock under her back, okay? The door, her front door, which protected the priest she hid, because she wouldn't give him up, and she wouldn't plead, because she wouldn't recognize the authority of the people that were doing this to her. They laid her front door on top of her and put rock on it until she was crushed to death. It took 15 minutes. Now I'm told that Elizabeth, she died under Elizabeth's reign, 1586 is when Margaret Clitheroe was martyred. I'm told that Elizabeth I at least had the decency to say they shouldn't have done that to a woman. You know? But remember that when you see movies about Elizabeth, watch out. She's glamorized, right? She really did do away with lots and lots of people, all right? And this is a very difficult time. This is the period of what's called the English martyrs, all right? So understand when you Edmund Campion's another one, all right? He was a convert, by the way, from the Church of England he was martyred in 1581, all right? But all the way up until about 1729, when all that came to an end. But in Ireland, then you have a new crop of martyrs who are called the English, the Hunger Martyrs, in which the Church of England, and the government would starve the people, literally. You know, there's a potato famine, but there was a lot of other food, but they carted all the food to England. And if you were a Catholic, your property was seized and you didn't get any food and you starved to death. That's the way it was done, okay? So we have that period. So this is a very intense time. And it's one in which many Catholics today, and especially in this part of the world, they don't have an understanding of that history. So part of my mission as a former Anglican priest, now a Catholic priest and a convert, is to tell that story. Now with me, it began when I was growing up in that church in Fort Worth, an Anglican church, a Church of England Episcopal Church. Its name is St. Timothy's, on the southeast side of Fort Worth. Have you ever been to that part of the world? I grew up there. The priest there, George Acker, Father Acker, one of my mentors, primary mentors in my life, brought in a monk who was working in Liberia at the time. He and this monk went to seminary together. And he had come back from Liberia where he was in a special ministry in Liberia as a monk. Episcopalians have monks too, okay? Especially high church Episcopalians, or I should say Anglo-Catholic. Okay? And he brought him to our church on a Friday in Lent. We did Episcopalians, we did Benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, we did Stations of the Cross, and then we had a presentation that was made. And I sat with my parents in the, we always sat, you know, we're territorial, aren't we, in church? We are! In fact, you know, the boat's tipping right here a little bit, you know. We are territorial, we really are. And my parents always sat in the second pew on the right side or the left side of the church if you're facing the altar. That's called the gospel side, okay? Always in the second row, and I was with him. I was 9 years old. When I came to faith, I was 9. And I was listening to Father Stevens, who had come to us from Liberia. He was a former Shakespearean actor in New York City. He was a wonderful man, holy. He looked like one of those faces of the children that you see in Steven Spielberg movies, with the big blue eyes, just cute little kid. He had a baby face, but an incredible man. And he had his white hat on, with the knots and the cincture and all that, the rosary, all the stuff, all right? And I just thought it was the greatest thing I'd seen since sliced bread, And I'm sitting right between my parents. I'm looking at this, and I'm listening to what he did. I'm 9 years old. 9 years old. And I'm hearing what he did. He worked in a leper colony in Liberia. Big one. Now, this was back in the 50s. Early 60s, all right? He was in a leper colony. These people had leprosy, all right? And he was coming through the United States to go from parish to raise money for his mission. And what they mostly wanted to buy with the money they raised was rubber foam so they could make mittens and booties for these people, because remember that leprosy kills the nerve endings and it rots the skin. Okay? And so they were trying to protect it. I am mesmerized by this. And I had never forgotten it. And it was at that point I knew the Lord was saying something to me. But it took another few years with the help of that wonderful priest at the parish so long ago. This is why the ministry of a priest is so important with young people, to help them to see where God is taking them. And I realized when I was in college, I was going to go to law school. Heaven forbid. I don't know if there's any lawyers. In fact, I was on my way to Baylor Law School when I really, it was absolutely as loud as it got. I was standing in the parking lot of the little college that Marilyn went to and waiting on her to come. I had a Volkswagen in those days. A 1966 Volkswagen, I could do the tune-ups on it. It was so easy. Some of you remember that, those vehicles. And I was waiting, and it was like this incredible peace came down on me. And I've never forgotten it. And at that point, I knew I was called to go to seminary. And went to seminary. Went to seminary at a place called the Shoda House, which is a very, very traditional Anglo-Catholic seminary, Episcopal seminary in Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee. All right? It was, now listen to this. It was the seminary that was founded by Jackson Kemper, Bishop Jackson Kemper, an Episcopal missionary bishop, who was mentored by John Henry Hobart, the Bishop of New York, the Episcopal Bishop of New York, who was the spiritual director of Elizabeth Seton when she was an Episcopalian. Now get that. Now you see, I didn't know all this in those days. And I look back and I see, and this has been, I can do this all night long. All of the pieces that come together like that. Elizabeth Seton, Mother Seton, was an Anglican. She's like me. And she converted. She went to Trinity Church, Episcopal Church in Wall Street, where John Henry Hobart was the priest before he became Bishop of New York. When her husband died, she became a Catholic. She was confirmed, received and confirmed by Bishop Carroll, first bishop in the Catholic Church. And she is the first native-born Catholic saint in the United States. Her mentor was the founder of the seminary that I went to. And me and many others. And this is what I'm here to tell you. Is that I was from an area of Texas. I grew up in an area of North Texas that was missionized originally by those missionary priests who were trained by Jackson Kemper and Hobart and all those guys that Elizabeth Seton learned under. And they brought the faith to North Texas in the mid to late 1800s. And it was there that those dioceses, and especially the Episcopal Diocese of Fort Worth, was so Catholic-leaning and still is to this day. And here's another factoid for you. Okay, here's another one for you. 33 priests in the Catholic Church right today, right now, were Episcopal priests in that diocese. Episcopal diocese. I'm one of the 33. My son's one of them. Okay? 33 have become Catholic priests from that Protestant diocese since 1988. All right? So you can see the Lord at work here. And you can see it readily. It's an amazing thing. And this brings me to the journey we've made together. All of these priests and these lay people has been a very long and arduous journey coming to faith. But we all experienced the same thing that John Henry Newman experienced. Alienation from the communities we left. I grew up in the diocese of Fort Worth, the Episcopal Diocese of Fort Worth. There are people there that thought, they've known me since I was a little kid. I was one of the boys in the diocese that grew up. They thought I was having a mental breakdown when I became a Catholic. These are people that know me all my life. We walked away, and I have to say this about all of the clergy that I deal with. I'm chaplain to all the clergy in the ordinary in North America. All of them had to walk away from their positions. All right? They did. They gave it up. They moved on. We didn't know whether we were going to be ordained. I was fine being a layman. Nothing wrong with that. You're a layman, you know. Nothing wrong with that. And I was given the opportunity to go through formation when Pope Benedict allowed that to happen, beginning in 2009, 2010, 2011, we were among the group of clergy that kept working with the Vatican on how the Catholic Church could receive us and those groups of Anglicans, lay people who were converting and coming into the Catholic Church. Now, it's true that anyone can go to any Catholic church like St. Bart's and you're going to get fine formation. But there's a specialty, if you will, that we have, that we work with former Anglicans and Methodists and other Protestants when we bring them in, because we're dealing with various and sundry doctrinal things that have a long history of difficulty among Protestants, like Mariology. Okay? So we work very hard in those areas, spend a lot of time in those areas, helping those people come to an understanding, because most of what is taught in Protestantism, and I say this without being judgmental, please don't get me wrong, I am thankful for where I came from. I took the scenic route to the Catholic Church, okay? And as one Catholic bishop told me, don't defame what God put you through and what brought you through. It's part of who you are. But what happened was that we come to an understanding that so much is misunderstood in Protestantism about all kinds of doctrinal beliefs in the Catholic Church. So our mission has also been one of overcoming that, so that people can have a much easier, a less bumpy ride coming in, okay, to Holy Mother Church. I like to talk about the pearl of great price. Jesus taught that, the pearl of great price. I've come to recognize over the years, and all of the mentors that I had, those priests that brought us forward all those years, who were pointing us toward the river being the Tiber, you know, Tiber. I liken it to the River Jordan. When Moses got the people to the edge of the Jordan, he didn't cross. So we had those wonderful people, Father George Acker being one of them, I mentioned him too, and many others who I call, they're part of the Moses generation. They didn't get a chance to cross the river. They didn't live long enough. Okay? They're there now. They're there now. But we're part of the Joshua group that crossed the river and have come into the fullness of the faith. I like to talk about that as well. And what we're doing now in the ordinariate is we're founding new congregations in various, all over North America. We've got one we just started in Woodlands. Of course, we have Our Lady of Walsingham, which is the cathedral. We have St. Margaret of Scotland, the ordinary Catholic community that meets at John 23rd High School. And we have our priests that help in the various congregations, such as myself, who likes to help here. I think the pastor's here. I like to help here. And I'll embarrass him. He is a first-rate priest. Wonderful man. Couldn't be happier being able to be here at St. Bartholomew's and able to live in Katy now. My wife and I live at the old golf course where Avenue D and Franz come together. Hall's Meadow, whatever it's called. Yeah, I never can remember the development. Our daughter and her husband built a house there, a lovely home, and inside they built a private apartment, which we live in. It looks like one house, but we have a total private residence in that house with our own garage and everything. It's called a next-gen home, is what it's called. And we live there. We've sold everything in Fort Worth, and we've come down in terms of scaled down. We live there, and I'm able to help where I'm needed. And I've stepped down from any formal positions in the ordinariate, save the fact that I'm the ordinariate's chaplain of clergy. But I don't have to worry about raising money, going to meetings, keeping office hours. I've been doing that for 40 years, So now I'm able to be a priest, And I really enjoy that sort of thing. So you can see that this particular work has come together for so many of us throughout North America. Like I said, about 100 priests. And we're all part of this miraculous movement of faith. And all of us can get together. When we get together as a diocese, the ordinary clergy, when we get together, we're able to bring our common experiences, and they're all the same. The Catholic Church has been so unbelievably welcoming to all of us, and we're able to help out wherever we are, and we want to do that. Cardinal Leonardo especially wants us to hear confessions, and I'm happy to do that, okay? And I do that a lot here at St. Bartholomew's. But we're here to bring into the tapestry of the faith a heritage that the Catholic Church lost for a while because of the separation. And that includes a musical heritage, people like Handel, for example, and the great music of the English church, okay? Pastoral care, and just generally a kind of spirituality that adds to the great tapestry that is the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is absolutely, it's the pearl of great price, if I can say that. It's what we've been looking for. Last Sunday we had the Luke's Gospel, and Luke at the beginning of the Gospel talks about the message of certainty. It's the certainty that we converts have been looking for. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't get up and say, thank God we're here. What can we do to help? What can we do? It's an amazing kind of thing. Never take for granted the faith. And the other thing is, and I think I'll probably end with this. In my former life as an Episcopal priest, I spent a lot of time heading a delegation. I went to 8 different general conventions in the Episcopal Church here in the United States. They have one every 3 years. And if you'll know this, that the Episcopal Church, like any Protestant church, doesn't have a magisterium. Magisterium meaning the deposit of faith. The truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. You don't go in and vote on the truth. Well, that's what we were doing in the Episcopal Church, and that's one reason we were in tremendous difficulty, is because what happens in a denomination that doesn't have a magisterium is that it always tends to go with the way of the world. You see, it always goes with the zeitgeist, the way of the world, and it moves in that direction. It always does that because there's no anchor, if you will. So whatever's popular. So you have things like, you have same-sex blessings and marriages and all that kind of stuff going on in the Episcopal Church ad nauseum. It's all over the place. And it's part of the problem of moving itself away from the gospel, moving itself away from the truth. We always talk about the fullness of the truth. And I led 8 deputations over a 24-year period. We fought and fought and fought for the truth in those conventions, realizing what was going on. And now we come into the Catholic Church having been, if you will, really beaten up by those battles, but understanding that our message to Holy Mother Church now is don't go that direction. It won't work. It's divisive, and it's dangerous, and it's deadly. We must stick with the gospel and what the gospel teaches. And believe you me, that's what you're hearing here at St. Bartholomew's. That's what this pastor is interested in doing. The young clergy in this diocese, I've been around a lot of clergy, and the young clergy in the Archdiocese of Galveston Houston are wonderful. Excellent men. Excellent, excellent men. And I can say that because I'm an outsider, if you will. Okay? But we come from battle-scarred, sort of all kinds of stuff, and here we come to be with and in the Catholic Church in all humility. Literally, when we met the Pope, we literally, I use the image, we had our hat in hand saying, we have no conditions. Take us in. Please, how can we serve you? How can we be Catholics? How can we bring all of these people, these Anglican lay people, in? And Benedict gave us what we needed. And that's what the ordinariate is. Okay? And Houston is the center point of the ordinariate in all of North America. So that's my story.